and there's all these people with these pink shirts on, catfish and collard greens, corn or something. I'm hooked. These people have my heart. I loved them. They were nice, and I'm like, who's that? He said Habitat. Habitat for Humanity assists low-income families that have a need and a willingness to partner with them, and you end up with a lovely home and a no-interest mortgage. They want you to have good credit. I signed my papers, and they gave me my keys, and then I went to my home, and I opened the door. To finally know that I'm moving in here, and it's my forever home.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. My name's Kelly. We make videos of us talking to everyday people and listening to their stories. It's amazing the things you learn when you just take time to talk and listen. We met Pam last summer when we decided it was time to add a new fur face to our family. You can hear more about that in the intro to part 1 of this series. In this episode, Pam tells us about her involvement with Habitat for Humanity and how it has been a life-changing event for her and her son Matt. If you've ever wanted to know more about the organization or the process, keep watching. It's truly an inspiration. This is part 2 of Pam's story. You will be amazed at how this tiny little woman was able to play a big part in building her own home. It is yet another true tale from everyday life. So how did you first encounter Habitat for Humanity?
My son was in the Air Force back in North Carolina, and my grandson was young at the time, and he and his wife asked me to come, for Matt and I to come live with them, because I was kind of homeless, at that point. After I left his dad, I was homeless. I was living with relatives, and so we got up to North Carolina, and the neighbor across the yard and street and yard, he had a weenie cart. He had a hot dog cart. And so he said, hey, you want to come help me sell hot dogs? Sure. And Matt was in school, so I went with him, and we were at a city function at one point, and there's all these people with these pink shirts on, and I loved them. They were nice, and I'm like, who's that? He said Habitat for Humanity, and I said, I don't know what that is. Well, go talk to them. So I went and talked to the pink shirts, and they told me about Habitat, and they said, come on out. We're working on a home in a neighborhood, not far from here. Come join us. So I did, and that's when I started volunteering with Habitat for Humanity.
Can you tell us what Habitat for Humanity is and what they do?
So Habitat for Humanity, Jimmy Carter was a big part of it, but Habitat for Humanity assists people, low-income families that have a need and a willingness to partner with them, and you end up with a lovely home and a no-interest mortgage.
Can you tell us the story about what really attracted you to Habitat for Humanity in North Carolina?
One of the things that really attracted me back there in North Carolina was the church folks pulled up in a big white truck one day, and they had a big deep fat fryer, and they served us lunch, and it was catfish and collard greens and corn or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm hooked. These people have my heart, I not only enjoy helping these families with all these other wonderful Christian folks, but this food, and so that was it for me. They call it habitatitis infectitis, and I was in.
How did you end up back here in Arizona and reconnecting with Habitat for Humanities here in Phoenix?
The kids didn't work out. They had gotten married so young, so Mom brought my grandson back to Phoenix to be with her family, and there I am kind of in North Carolina, and my son decided, we all decided to make changes. I got home from one of the sober cruises, and some of my friends from Arizona had come with me, flown into North Carolina instead of Arizona, packed up my stuff and moved us back to Phoenix, which was wonderful. At that point, I still wasn't involved with Habitat here, but I had got my foot in the door. In the meanwhile, I finally got connected with Habitat here. It wasn't too much longer. I don't know, maybe a year or so. But I was volunteering for Habitat, and I was actually a regular volunteer, not just showing up on a Saturday that worked for me. I became part of a team, and a wonderful team. And so every Saturday, I would go to the job site, and I was a site host, and I was able to sign in all of the volunteers that showed up on the site that day. So that was awesome too. More, wonderful, loving, kind, giving people wanting to help others and wanting to learn how to paint or whatever the task was that day. But Habitat's a really wonderful team building for a lot of church Christian groups, or some of the other big corporations, like Discover built my house. They sponsored my house.
Are there any qualifications needed for being able to volunteer with Habitat for Humanity?
If you're 16, you need an adult, and they don't want anybody coming in their stilettos. You want to wear appropriate clothing. But with Habitat in Arizona, which is really one of the best producing, I don't know, but we're top rated in Arizona. We have a really great program here. But the volunteers, we ask them to sign up before the Saturday, and you can go on their website, Habitat for Humanity Central Arizona, CAZ, and then you can sign up. There are different locations, and you can sign up, and it's fun, like as a husband-wife or a father-daughter or that kind of thing. It's really, it fills your heart, and I think once you do it, you really, you want to do it again,
What is a site host, and what do they do?
As a site host, I got to know the families, and it was wonderful. Not just my volunteer team, but also some of the teams that would come out. For example, Discover would have their group regularly, or American Express, or the church people, and I got to know some of these people.
How many homes a year does a team build?
Our team will build 2 homes a year, a fall and a spring build. It takes about 16 weeks to build a home. If supplies are flowing in, everything's changed since the pandemonium thing, but pretty much 16 weekends for tasks, the tasks that we do. It starts out 2 weekends framing, and, it overlaps, and then we do 2 weekends roofing. I was always terrified of heights, and I have pictures, but I've been on the roof. And I didn't, I was calm and everything else. And then we do drywall painting, doors and cabinets, and then we do landscaping. And I can do a little bit of all of it, because Habitat will work with you as a volunteer. My son Matt started when he was 16.
Tell us about when you qualified to build your own home right here in Phoenix.
I had already been volunteering with them, so it's probably about 2 years before I realized that I would qualify in Arizona. I didn't qualify in North Carolina. I qualified here, and so I qualified. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to, like I say, you have to have a need. So you have to be in unfit living situation, or you have to have that kind of a need. In my instance, my employer was paying for my rent, and she was hospice bound, so I was in trouble. I wasn't going to be able to live there any longer and go back to living with family. Most people have overcrowding or unsafe conditions for the family. I didn't have that, I want to say bad of a need, but my need was kind of a high-end need, really. You have to have the ability to pay. They want you to have good credit. So, if I'd have had a car payment or a bunch of credit card debt, or, they want you to succeed. I think they have like a 2%, not fail rate, but fail rate, where people can't make their mortgages or whatever. They're no interest mortgage. So they want you to be able to pay. And if you do have a credit issue, something hanging up your credit, you have to have good credit. And you have to have the willingness to partnership with Habitat, which I have a neighbor that has a disease and she's in a wheelchair, and she was still able to partner to come out and help build her home. Another friend had Parkinson's, and of course Habitat also worked with her to make her home accommodating for her disease.
How is it determined where a house is going to be built? And are there different floor plans to choose from, or just one?
Now, mind you, it's been like 9 years for me, which could have changed drastically, but I doubt it. So Habitat has certain areas where, like, for example, Glendale really has a wonderful partnership with Habitat. I built a lot of homes in Glendale, and then in my neighborhood in Peoria, there were 3 lots that Peoria actually gave Habitat, the homeowner, a grant. And after 5 years or something, that money drops off your mortgage. We're doing an awful lot in Surprise right now. But, it's typically it's affordable. It's affordable. It's nothing fancy, nothing high end. I got to pick out my paint color. They have a standard floor plan that they flip-flop because they don't want anything cookie cutter. But when you have a staff of volunteers, each home has one paid staff member that typically oversees the build on a couple of homes, at least back then. So he's not there. So he is relying on this group of regular volunteers that know the floor plans and know what they're doing, so that when we have volunteers come out, the regular leaders, team leaders, can direct the volunteers on how to do it.
Tell us about the day you picked up the keys to your new home.
The way it worked for me, I was very involved in the build process. It's a requirement. And so it's such a gift to see how your house gets built. And sometimes I would go and I'd think, oh, we're going to be roofing today, but the regular volunteers would have put my roof up over the week, during the week or something. So there was always that magical element of it. But what Habitat did was I went to the office, I signed my papers, and they gave me my keys. And then I went to my home and I opened the door. And it was the 1st of July, very hot, but you can't describe that. Can't describe that feeling. I had been homeless, not your regular homeless, living with relatives. I didn't have my own home for so many years, and to finally know that I'm moving in here and it's my forever home.
What are the most exciting parts about building your own home with Habitat for Humanity?
So there's a couple of parts of the build that are very exciting for the homeowner, especially, and that is the first day of the build, where you go onto the lot. Oh, you get to pick your lot. Usually what happens is Habitat says, we have these 3 property lots available. Go check it out and, see what you like. And then they have the cement poured and they start building the walls, and you're there, part of it. And that's what the first day of the build is. It's a ceremony, and it's called the wall signing. And that's where you can invite your kids and your family, and they have a little ceremony. Otherwise, children aren't allowed on the build. But that's where they have a ceremony, and they talk about the family, they talk about the team that's sponsoring your build, and everybody gets a Sharpie marker, and they write blessings on your sticks. And it's another very magical ceremony. Then at the end of the build, they have the dedication ceremony, and that's when your house is all built. The team of leaders and volunteers have come in and spruced it up and cleaned up the windows and made sure everything is perfect. And that's when they invite, and typically that's how I got to know the councilman from Glendale, and I know the councilman from Peoria because I saw them regularly, Vicki Hunt, and this kind of thing, because they support Habitat. One of the things that building Habitat home in the neighborhood does is it reduces blight. And I have seen it firsthand. They start putting a new house in the neighborhood, building this house, and the neighbors are like, oh wow, and they are gonna clean their property up because their property value is about to go up. So it's totally a win-win for the cities, and it's totally a win-win for the neighborhood.
What advice would you have for anyone who wanted to learn more about and volunteer for Habitat for Humanity?
So as an individual, you can go on to habitatzaz.org and sign up on their, they have a sign up on the web where you can sign up for a property. And but if you're a group, you need to contact the main office because they're always looking for groups. And it's fun, it's team building. Everybody comes out and paints and or whatever, painting is seems to be a popular task.
Tell us about neighborhood revitalization. How is Habitat for Humanity involved in that?
They go into, we've done a lot of work around GCU because they've also partnered with Habitat in some aspect. And so we go in there and we'll do 12 or so many houses. We'll go in there and we'll paint, or and many other things that they do to help low-income residents. That, again, it improves the neighborhood.
That's awesome.
It improves the neighborhood, it improves morale, it's just such a win-win.